Our top focus on Newspoint this morning. China's Foreign Minister Wang Yi is all set to visit the United States of America on the 26th of October. The Chinese top diplomat will be in Washington till the 28th of October. And in the course of the next few minutes, let's take a look at what will dominate Wang Yi's US visit. Number one, on top of the agenda will be de-escalating tensions in West Asia. The United States of America has urged China to use its relationship with the Arab nations in West Asia to de-escalate tensions between Israel and Hamas. Not only this, China will also use its ability to influence Iran. Like I mentioned, China will use its influence to de-escalate tensions in West Asia and also influence Iran. All of this with an aim to ensure that the ongoing war does not spill over to other nations. Apart from this, the Ukraine-Russia war will also dominate Wang Yi's visit. Now, especially after Beijing has grown closer to Russia since the Ukraine war began. That is what I'm talking about here, that Beijing has grown closer to Russia since the start of the war, and China has called for a ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine. China has also called for a ceasefire between Israel and Hamas. Now, according to the US officials, Washington would push Beijing to take constructive approach on both these issues. And lastly, the likelihood of a Xi and Biden meeting, which will also dominate Wang Yi's visit to the United States of America. Well, the latest trip by the Chinese top diplomat is taking place 3 weeks ahead of the APEC summit, which is scheduled to take place in San Francisco. Beijing has, however, not confirmed if the Chinese President Xi Jinping will travel to the US for the upcoming summit. Now, Biden and Xi last met in 2022 on the sidelines of the G20 summit, which took place in Bali. And for more on this, we are now being joined by journalist Mr. Terrell Yue Jones from California. He currently teaches international journalism at the Claremont McKenna College. Welcome to the broadcast, Professor.
Yes.
Right, Professor, one of the main agendas of Wang Yi's trip to the US is to de-escalate tensions in West Asia. The US has also acknowledged China's influence in the region, but the paramount question right now being is that will China be able to act as a mediator and diffuse tensions when we've already seen so many diplomatic leaders visiting Israel and Palestine?
Well, you almost have to ask yourself who else can have such a global stature and talk to both sides. China has a long-standing relationship, decades, with Arab countries, the Middle East, and Palestinians in particular. It has an ongoing relationship up and down with the United States, but at least the United States wants to talk to China. So China is probably as reasonable a choice as any from the American side as to who can talk to both Israel and the Palestinian side, or Hamas in particular even. Both China and the United States want to increase dialogue between the two of them because that has fallen off quite sharply in recent months.
Absolutely, Professor. But also with Israel-Hamas war going on, do you think China and Russia hope to turn tables on the US?
Well, certainly China and Russia have been deepening their alliance all over again, kind of what happened in 1989 with Gorbachev and Deng Xiaoping, but now with much more at stake, with Russia engaged in a full-on war and China wanting to project more globally both its political and military power. So obviously there will be suspicion on the part of the United States as to how much can they entrust China to carry out something that is in both sides' interest. But there's not a lot of other choices right now.
Last question to you, Professor. China's clearly, projected itself as a mediator in the geopolitical sphere in today's time. And especially, I want to see your perspective as to what kind of advantage in diplomatic matters or in economy matters is China seeking through this crisis?
Well, China is one of the few countries that say, the United States has a strong relationship with, that talks to Iran in a friendly and constructive way. Iran, of course, is the major backer of Hamas, but also Hezbollah at the northern end of Israel on the Lebanon border. And so, if China can talk to Iran or Iran-affiliated organizations, then that is something that the United States would hope. It's better than something like a Swiss diplomat or a Swedish diplomat who are neutral but just don't have the gravitas and the long-standing ties and the actual influence over players such as Iran and Palestine and other Arab states that China has. And so it's in China's interest to increase its role as a global peacemaker, as it recently did between with Saudi Arabia and Iran, and the United States would certainly like, for some way, for the hostilities to die down.
Absolutely, Professor. We'll have to wait and see how Wang Yi's visit pans out in the United States of America and the implications. But thanks very much for joining us, and WION and sharing your insights with us on this.
All right, thank you for having me.